So the lecture for today is Microsoft project. So basically what we're going to do today is to learn how to use the basic commands for this software, which is very powerful for planning projects. Microsoft Project has been developing these different versions throughout the years. So I'm familiar with one of the older versions. The one that we have in the computers in class is the 2010. So there's some difference between the one that I learned and the one that we have here. But in general, the software is very straightforward. It's very easy to learn. So I'm going to guide you with the basic commands. So the PowerPoint slide has some step-by-step information, but before we get to the software, just want to show you the objectives for the course. And as you can see, objective number 6 is actually related to learning a computer software that would allow you to help you plan the projects in the future. So interpret, analyze, output from Microsoft Project. So there's a lot of information that you'll be able to get from the software once you put all the information from your project. So some of the things that we're going to learn today using the software is create a new project, assign tasks to the project, change the task duration, how to inactive one of the tasks or multiple tasks, setting up the resources that you're going to be needing for your for your project, assigning resources to tasks, linking tasks within your project, and also outline your project at the end. So if you haven't logged into your computer yet, please log in and let's start working with Microsoft Project. So I'll give you a minute to log in. And again, the software is very intuitive. So hopefully you'll get a very good hands-on experience that you can learn a little bit more after the lecture. So after you log in, the way that you find the software is basically you go to your Microsoft Office folder, and inside that folder you should be able to find Microsoft Project 2010. Let me know if you have if any of the computers does not have the software installed. Everybody good? Are we ready? Okay. So once you open, you click there. This is the window that you will see. This is the Gantt chart window. And we're going to be using this mostly for this lecture. So if you want to create multiple projects in Microsoft Project, again, when you open the software, it's going to give you this spreadsheet type of look window. That's for you to create your project. But if you want to create multiple projects at the same time, then you can go to File. Let me actually open project here in my computer. So you can go to New and then click on the project, New Project. I think this is not project, this is publisher. Sorry. Okay, so this is our main window, and we're gonna start from here. So the first thing that you're gonna learn is basically how to create a new task. But before we get to that, an important thing to remember when you're creating these tasks is to define your task models effectively. Consider the following guidelines: break down tasks to the level of detail that you want to track. If you make very general tasks, then you will end up having maybe one to three tasks, and that might not be very good if you're trying to track your project. So try to break down the tasks to the level of detail that you want. You should break them down in more detail for riskier areas. Make sure that tasks have a clear criteria for completion. Define the tasks that are short compared with the overall project duration. Shorter tasks allow you to more easily estimate the time and the resources that you're gonna need, and avoid defining such things as vacation or training as part of your project. Microsoft Project allow you to define certain days in the calendar in which you're not gonna have resources available. So we can use that option instead. So instead, you can set resource calendars to account for non-working days or non-working time. So to create a new task, again, we're going to be using the Gantt chart view. So that Gantt chart view is here. So if you go to your task tab, you'll find that first icon. That's the one that we're going to be using to go back to the Gantt chart view. And if you want to insert or create a new task, basically what you do is that you go to this module or spreadsheet, and you go to the column for task name, and you type the name of the task. So I'll be using the general name for this task. I will call it task number 1. And I will create multiple. Let me type task 2 and task 3. So there's multiple information that you can include in these rows. For each task, for instance, you can add the duration of the task, you can add the start of the task, and so on. So if you scroll down, if you go down and scroll to the right, you'll see all the information that you can include for each task. So we're going to go over that in this lecture. But right now, let's just focus on how to define a task. Something else that you can notice is at the top you have this timeline. So it basically tells you the duration of the task and or how long. So basically allow you to keep track of your project. So that's how you define a task. And again, if you put some duration here, let's see, we can put 1 day, then that day is going to show up here in your chart. And we can do the same thing here for task number 2, say 2 days, and 5 days, 4 days. Something that you will notice is that each task is starting at the same time. So later in this lecture, I'm going to show you how you can put some links, or if there's any task that is required to start the next task, then you can do that in the Gantt chart as well. So once you have defined this task, you can also, let's say you want to add the task in between. So you forgot to include one task, and then you realize that something is missing in between these tasks. You can insert a task between existing tasks. So basically what you do is you go and select the row below where you want the new task to appear, and then you go to the task tab in the insert group right here. So this is the insert group. And then you basically click on the task button, and it will include a task in between those two tasks that you already defined. So this new task, let me call it new task 1. Okay, so in case you remember, you forgot to add one detail about your project, or you realize that something was missing, you can insert task in between and put it into your project. Any questions so far? There's, besides or in addition to the network, the Gantt chart view, we also have other types of views for Microsoft Project. One of them is the network diagram view. So on the View tab, you can go to View, and then here you have Task Views in this first option menu. If you click on top, well, you don't have to click, just put the arrow on top of it. You will see that the options that you have, so you have network diagram, you have calendar, and then timeline. We have the Gantt chart, which is usually the one that we use. So if you want to see your project in the network format or the network diagram format, then you just hit there, you click there, and then you will see all your tasks defined in boxes, but each box represents a task. So when we start defining the predecessors of your task and the times in between the tasks, then you'll see how the network starts to form. But right now we have 4 tasks. We have tasks from 1 to 3, and we have our new tasks in between. So if you want to insert a new task in this format, the process is the same. So you basically click the task. Let me put it here. And then you go back to the task tab and click that button, insert task, and it will put a new task right here. So let me put that task, new task number 2. I find easier to follow the Gantt chart method or the Gantt chart representation or view, but this one is also useful when we are trying to follow up the predecessors and also more information about your project. So I'll go back to the Gantt chart mode. I just wanted to show you that there are different views for your project, and then you can basically use all these functions for any of the views. So let's go back to the Gantt chart. So if you go to the task menu or the task tab, you can hit this Gantt chart view, and you will go back to your original window. So let's say you want to include multiple tasks at the same time in your project. So the Microsoft Project software allows you to do that. So to create multiple tasks, you go to the View tab. So that's tab number 5 at the top of the window. And then go to the Task Views window or Options. So that's the first menu that we have here at the left of the window. You click Gantt chart so that we already did that. And then on the View tab, you select Details. So that will bring this new window at the bottom of your screen. And this will allow you to add multiple tasks easily. So if you want to name, just click here. We want to add a new task here. So the name is task 4. We can specify the duration, the start finish time, and so on. So hit OK, and then the task will show up there. Then I can also hit next, and then that will go to the next row in the window. So I can type task 5, and then hit OK, and then hit next, and you can repeat the process as many times as you need. So you will have that extra window, and that will allow you to define as many tasks as you need. You can insert the duration of the task. You can specify the start and finish times, the resources that you're going to need, and so on. So we're going to talk about resources later in this lecture. For now, I'm just giving you an overview of the options that you have to define your task. So that's how you create multiple tasks. Something, so let me go back to the original view. If you want to just minimize that window, then you will get the whole screen again. So just click in between the line, or the line that divides the two windows. You can click on top of that and then scroll down. It will eliminate the window. Now the next thing that I'm going to show you is how to define recurring tasks. So these are tasks that are repeated during your project. So let's say you have to perform an inspection of your project every week. So every week you're going to have the same task defined. So instead of inputting that information every week, you can define that task once and then tell project, this is a recurring task, let's repeat it every week. So to define that, a recurring task, in the task name box, type the task name. So let me call this task 6. And then I'll put the duration here. This is going to be 1 day. Or maybe, yes, 1 day. So the task is going to show up there. Let's see if I can get to the whole window here. So we have our task defined. And then we go into the recurring pattern section. So go back to task. Let's see that option here. Yeah, I don't see in there the option for. Let's see. So again, I'm familiar with the 2007 version. I'm trying to find out where the recurrence is. So if we go to the task duration box, in the recurrence pattern section, click daily. Let me Yes.
Go to where you create a new task, and then it should be recurring task. Where the button where you use to make the new task, there's the arrow below it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, here. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. So if you click there, then it will let you know, it will provide you with the menu for the recurring task. So we have the task name, and I think we are creating a new one. So let's type a new, let's go back to the new. So the task name I'm putting here, task 7. And then we can specify the recurrence pattern. So this is going to be weekly. It's going to repeat every week. And you need to specify the day of the week. So let's put Wednesday, for instance. And then you can specify the time in which you want this task to get started. So let's put this here to 12. And this is going to be repeated until, let's say, after 2 months, the 28th of May. And then click OK. So the task is going to be repeated every Wednesday. It's going to last 1 day. And it's going to continue until the end of May. So if you go to your Gantt chart view, you will see that task repeated until the end of May. Any questions? So again, this is very useful if you're trying to define an inspection, or if you're trying to define a maintenance, or if you're trying to define anything that is going to be repeated in your project. One thing that you can notice here is that when you define a recurring task, you will see that icon here that basically tells you this task occurs 12 times between this, so this is a recurring task, and it gives you the information about the task. Also, if you open that plus sign, it will list you the number of times that that task is going to be repeated, and it will give you the duration and also the way it looks in the Gantt chart. Any questions so far? Okay. So a couple of things about recurrent tasks. If you want to apply a calendar but not tie the calendar to the scheduling for the task, select the scheduling ignore resources calendars checkbox, and this will make more sense when we define the resources. When you insert a recurring task, the task ID are automatically renumbered. Recurring task indicator appears in the indicator column, which is the indicator that I show you in the first column of the Gantt chart window. And this is how the window will look like. And yeah, right there, if you have the same problem that I have trying to find the recurring task, this window shows you how to find it. Okay? Any comments, questions? Okay. So now let's talk about how to change the task duration. So when you create an automatically scheduled task for project 2010, then the project automatically assigns the software automatically assigns a duration of 1 day to all the tasks. So you can modify that duration at any time to reflect the actual time or amount of time that the task requires. So these are the options that are provided by the software. In the duration column for the task, the type of duration in minutes, hours, days, weeks, or months. You can establish any type of duration using those units. But note that project does not convert the units if you change them. For example, if the duration is 1 day and you want to express it in hours, you must first calculate the number of working hours in a day and then enter the new values in hours. So again, the software is gonna have a setup, an automatic setup in days, but you can change that setup to hours, minutes, months, weeks, depending on the type of duration that you need for your project. So if the new duration is an estimate, you can always type a question mark after the duration and then press enter. That will tell the software that this is an estimate and it's not the actual duration of the task. So in order to change the task duration, the default units again are days. You can follow these steps. So let's show you that. So again, when you come here to this window, you see that if you want to specify the duration for, let's say, new task number 1, the options that you're going to have are in days, only in days. So 0 days, 2 days, 3 days. You don't have the option of specifying hours, minutes, months, anything other than days. If you want to change that setup in your software, you can go to here, File, Options, and Schedule. And then this is telling you the duration is entered in these units. So right now the setup is for days, but you can change that to hours, weeks, month, depending on the type of project that you are trying to define. So I'm putting hours now. So if I go here, now the setup is in hours. Okay? So make sure and when you make that change, when you change the time units for your project, the software is not going to change the durations that you already entered. So you need to go back and redefine your hours for some of the tasks. Any questions? So let me go back to the original setup. So I'll go back to Options, Schedule, and I'll put this duration is entered in days. Most of the time, you're going to be planning big projects that will take, let's say, 1 year or 2 years or maybe a month. So what you usually are going to be using in terms of the units are days. Unless you are very detail oriented, that you can use limits or limit the time units that you're using. So something else that I think is very useful that you know is how to make a task inactive. So if you want to, let's say something happened and you are covering one of the tasks doing something else, and that task is not it's not part of the project anymore. So you can go here to the View tab and go back to your Gantt chart, and then you will have this in the Task tab. You have an inactive icon. You can select your task. Say task number 4, and you go to the inactive icon, that task will still stay in the Gantt chart, but it will not be part of the project. So it will not affect the total duration of the project and so on. Okay, so you can make that task inactive. And that's very simple. Now let's talk about setting the resources. So in this section, you will go over how to set up basic resource information for the people who work on projects, enter basic resource information for the equipment that will be used in projects. So when we talk about resources, you are not only talking about people, we can also add machines or any type of equipment that needs to be scheduled for the project. So that will include some equipment, enter resource information for the materials that will be consumed as the project progresses, enter the cost resource information for financial tracking, set up the cost information for work resources, change a resource availability for work, and record additional information about the resource in a note. So here are some examples of work resources that we can have. So I'm putting some names here. So a work resource, individual people identified by name. So we have Jim and John. Individual people identified by job title of function. So director or camera operator. Group of people who have common skills like electricians, carpenters, and extras, and then equipment, video camera, 600 watt light, and so on. So this provides you with some examples of the type of resources that you can define. Something that you will see frequently is that you might not have a name for one of your resources. Like let's say you know that the company has a group of people who are in charge of maintenance, but you don't know each person who works in this group. But you actually know that they have 5 people on schedule every day that can perform the tasks that are required from the maintenance group. So for such cases, you can use the group of people option, and you're going to define that resource as the maintenance group. And then instead of providing if you put 100% availability, that means that you have one resource available all day. But if you have multiple resources for the same group, then you can increase that to 200, meaning that you have 2 resources available, and so on. So we will see that in the example that I'm going to show in class. So let's define the resources. So on the View tab, click the resource sheet. So go to your Microsoft project. You'll go to View. You're in the Gantt chart already. So go to Resource. And in the resource sheet, under the tab View, you can click Resource Sheet, and then this window will come up. Here you can define the resource name. So let's use the example that I have here in my notes. So resource sheet view, click the cell directly before the resource name, and let's type Jonathan Miller. And press enter. So project is going to create this resource for your project. Here you're going to have the maximum availability for this person. So 100% means that you have this person available all the time to work in your project. Then you also have a standard rate, meaning that this is how much the resource will cost you per hour. And this is during all 8 hours shift, during the typical shift. Then if you need to pay the resource overtime, you have also an extra window here that you can use to establish what will be the cost. Then we will get to more information. This is more accounting type of information. So this is if the project is prorated and so on. So we don't need those details right now, but we need to know how much, what percentage of the resource is available to work in your project, and also the standard rate and the overtime rate. So we have one resource right now defined in our project. So we can add more people here. So if you go to the next slide, let's put the names of those resources. So John, Daniel, Jared, or and John Rutman. Okay, so now we have the names of the resources. You can see that the worksheet also shows the initials of the names of the resources, and we have some information here. Um, so as I mentioned earlier, we can also have a resource that represents multiple resources. So I'm going to type that type of resource right now. I'm going to call it electrician. So this resource is going to be representing multiple, let's say we have a group of 3 or 4 electricians. So this same resource will represent all of them. So then we can go to tab here. We can get to the maximum number of units that we have available. So let me just follow this. So in the type field, make sure that the word is selected and then press tab several times until you get to the max units field. The max unit field represents the maximum capacity of a resource to accomplish any task. So specifying that a resource such as John has 100% maximum units means that 100% of John's time is available to work on the task to which you assign them or assign him. Project will alert you if you assign John more than tasks that he can accomplish at a maximum of 100%. In other words, if you over allocate this resource, the project software is going to let you know. So yes, that's very good. So in the max units field for the electrician, you can type 200. So let's do that. So the mass unit is 200. So what would that number again is going to represent that you have a question over there for questions. So you have 200% units or 200% of these resources available. So what that represents is that you're going to have 2 people that can perform these tasks available. Any questions so far? So we have a group of resources now defined. So we can move to setting up equipment. So in project, you set up people and equipment resources in exactly the same way. However, you should be aware of important differences in how you can schedule these two work resources. Most people resources have a working day of no more than 12 hours, but equipment resources might work around the clock. So that's a difference, specifically if you are defining your working days on an 8-hour basis. Make sure that there's a difference between these two type of resources. So people resources might be flexible in the tasks that they can perform, but equipment resources tend to be more specialized. You don't need to track every piece of equipment in your project, but you might want to set up equipment resources when multiple things or people might need a piece of equipment to accomplish different tasks simultaneously, or you want to plan and track costs associated with the equipment. So the example that I'm showing here is defining a generator. So we can go back to here and basically you just type the name of the equipment and the availability. So if you only have one generator, then you can put 100% if it is available for your project, 100% of the time. In terms of material resources, these are consumables that you use up to as the project proceeds. So on a construction project, for instance, material resources might include nails, lumber, and concrete. For the toy commercial project, videotape is the consumables resources that interest you most. You work with material resources in project mainly to track the rate of consumption and the associated costs. Although project is not a complete system for tracking inventory, it can help you stay better informed about how quickly you are consuming your material resources. So there's other software packages that are more related to this type of thing, but you can still use project to define the material consumption. So entering the resource pay rates, let's go back to our resources. In the resource sheet, click the standard rate field for Jonathan Miller, and then type 10 and press enter. So we're gonna basically pay this resource 10 hours per $10 per hour. So let's go to Jonathan Miller and then just type 10. And that's it. Very easy. Just add the amount of dollars that this person is going to be making per hour, and then you have your rate defined for that resource. Note that the default standard rate is hourly, so you not need to specify cost per hour. In the standard rate for John, type 1550. And then you have a different rate for this person. And that's how you assign the cost per hour. So again, it's very easy, very simple steps. I guess the hardest thing is to remember where to go to find the things that you need to define. So if we go back to the presentation, the next thing that we want to do is adjusting the working time for individuals, resources. So a resource calendar controls the working and non-working times of a resource. So resource calendars apply only to work resources, people and equipment, and not to material or cost resources. The initial working time setting for a resource calendar exactly match those of the standard-based calendar. If all the working times of your resources match the working time, of the standard-based calendar, you don't need to edit any resource calendar. However, chances are that some of your resources will need exceptions to working time in the standard-based calendar, such as flexible time or flex time for schedule, some vacation time, or if the resource becomes sick, then you can put that into your calendar so you know that that person is not going to be available. So here are the steps to adjust the working time for individual resources. So first thing that we're going to do in the project tab, click change working time. So let me go back to project. So we go to the project tab, and here's the option, change working time. And it will select it will provide you the options for the resource that you selected before clicking on this option. So let me go back. So right now I have selected John. So when I click change working time, the options that are going to show up are for this resource. So now I can edit the exceptions or the calendar for this resource. So let's say in the example, let me follow the steps of the example. So in the example we have we have Garrett. So Garrett change working time. And this resource, I told you he will not be available to work on Thursday and Friday, April 10th and 11th, because he plans to attend a festival. So you know this person will not be available. On the exception tab in the change working time dialog, so that will be this window here, the exception tab. You're going to go to that tab and then you're going to type this excuse for this person. So this is film festival. So you are a good boss, so you want to give the time this person to go there and enjoy it while you're working on your project. I don't think that's something that will happen often, but yeah, this is the example. So we will put that there, and we're gonna type the start time. So we know it's gonna be April 10th and 11. So we will finish 11. And basically that's how you define it. So after you click OK, project will not assign any tasks to this resource on those days because you know the person is not going to be available. Any questions? Okay, good. So now let's move to one of the most important things that you're going to have to do with project is to assign resources to the tasks that you're defining to your project. Okay, so you have several tasks defined already, and now we're going to assign some of those resources to each one of the tasks. So let's go back to the Gantt chart view. So these are the tasks that we have defined already. We have task 1 up to task 7. And we also have new task 1 and new task 2. And we have some durations for those projects. So assigning a work resource to a task enables you to track the progress of the resource work on the task. So if you enter resource pay rates, project will also calculate the resource and task cost for you. So if you go to the resource menu, so you go to this tab at the top, the resource tab, you have a menu for assignments. So again, this is very straightforward. So if you click one of the tabs and you go to assign resources, then this window with options is going to show. So you can decide which resource are you going to use for that particular task. So I'm choosing Garrett. So I go assign, and then I'm putting him here for, let's say, 50% of the time. So if I go to that task, if you go to the Gantt chart, you'll see that for that task is Garrett is assigned and it's showing up here in your Gantt chart window. And it will tell you for what percentage of the time of the person is available. And then you can repeat the process for each one of the tasks in your project. Any questions? So far we have learned how to define some tasks, find duration, cost, also define resources, people, staff, equipment, and the last thing we did was to assign a resource to a, yes, there's a class right now. Can you give us like 20 more minutes? Yeah. And then, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. So we were assigning the resources to the task. The next thing we're going to do is to look at how to link the task to your project or within your project. So you know some of the tasks will have some predecessors, so you're going to have to wait until one of the tasks is completed to go to the next task. So there's multiple ways that you can define that in Microsoft Project. So linking tasks within your project. So after you create a task in a project, you need to link them to show relationship between them. So linking tasks create task dependencies. So again, you're going to have some dependencies in terms of completion of one task to start the next one. Task dependencies is a relationship between two linked tasks linked by a dependency between their finish and start dates. And there's 4 kinds of task dependencies that we can define for our project. The first one is finish to start. The second one is start to start. The third one is finish to finish. And the last one is start to finish. So you can also show the relationship between multiple projects by linking the tasks across projects or by using inter-project dependencies. But we will not get to that point here, but that's something that you can do. So in order to illustrate differences between these dependencies, we have this chart. So the first one is the finish to start time. So as an example here, you have 2 tasks, so you're waiting basically that task 1 is completed to start the next one. And that's the first time, finish to start. The start to start is very intuitive. Again, you need to start both of the tasks in parallel, so both of them are going to be starting at the same time. So the dependent task B cannot begin until the task that it depends on A begins. So sometimes you need to start both tasks at the same time. Then we have a finish to finish link. And this one basically says that both of the tasks need to be completed at the same time. So the dependent task B cannot be completed until the task that it depends on A is completed. And the last one is the start to finish. So the dependent task B cannot be completed until the task it depends on begins. That's the one I believe is the less frequent one, but the other three are more frequent. Any questions? So those are the kinds of relationships or links that we are able to define in project using Microsoft Project. So to link tasks in Gantt chart view, on the View tab in the Task View group, click Gantt chart. In the task name field, select two or more tasks that you want to link in the order you want to link them. So, so you're going to select one first and then the other. That's going to tell you which task is going to be depending on the other one. So if you, to select two or more tasks you want to link in the order you want to link them, to select the tasks that are next to one another, just hold down shift, take the first task and the last task that you want to link, so you can select multiple tasks using this option. And to select tasks that are not next to one another, you need to click Control and click the first task, and then go find the next one and click the other task, and then you will make it happen. So let me show you that with the software here. So let's say I want to link task 1 and task 2. So those two tasks are separate. So I need to use the Control key to select those tasks. If you're missing part of the lecture, I think you're going to have trouble later on in this class because we're going to be using this frequently from now on. So again, I feel like a kindergarten teacher repeating this every now and then. So if you need to leave the classroom, you make sure that it's an emergency, but every time you leave the classroom, you're interrupting the lecture, and I find it very disrespectful for me as a professor. So yeah, so make sure that you start behaving professionally because that's something that is going to help you in the future. So let's continue. So if you want to link two tasks, you need to hold the Control key, and then you're going to be selecting those two tasks that you need to link. And then you go to Task here at the top, and you have this link option. So you want to link those two tasks. And when you hit that button, then you will see those two tasks now have their link, and this is the start the page option. So if you want to link, let's say, these three tasks that are next to each other, let's say you want to create a dependency, maybe those are not the best options. Let's say we have tasks 2, 3, and 5. So one thing you can do is to go here, click task 2, hit the shift or hit shift, and then select the next task and click link. And then those tasks are going to be linked. So the problem in here is that this is a task that is repeated, so maybe that would not, it's not showing properly. We have an inactive task here. So if we remove that link, maybe we'll get this one right here. And then notice that see if I can take this out. it is basically saying that this is an inactive task. Okay, so again, you have multiple options. So if you want to link two tasks that are separate in your table, you can hold the control button and then select the task that you want to link. And also, if you want to link tasks that are consecutive, then you can just use the shift button and select all the tasks that you need. Project creates a finish to start task link by default. So if you go back here, you will see that this is the finish to start task. And so that's the option that is by default. You can repeat the that process using the network diagram view. So you can go to the view tab and tap view with the network diagram. And basically you're going to position the point in the center of the predecessor task bottom, tracking line to the successor task bar. And I don't think that would be easy to show here. Let me see. So this is the calendar. Okay, so here's how the network looks like right now. So you have a predecessor here for task number 2. And I believe let me see if that's still available. No, it doesn't let you do it. So previously you were able to drag that task between those two and it will link them, but not letting me do in this version. Anyway, for the purpose of the class, we're going to be using the Gantt chart most of the time and all the time, and that's what is usually used in industry as well. So let's recapitulate one more time. So you're going to have multiple ways to link your tasks. One of them is this finish to start. Then you have other options. So make sure that you understand the differences between them. And the way you link them is by using this menu here under the task tab or the schedule group, the link task button. And then the last thing that I have to show you today is the outline on your project. So you can break down your task list to make it appear more organized and readable. Then in the project task, create an outline of the summary task and subtask. So to create a summary task and subtask, create an outline for your task by indenting and outdenting them to create the summary task and subtask. So by default, the summary tasks are bold and outdented, and the subtasks are indented beneath them. So in the Gantt chart view, click the row for the task that you want to indent as a subtask or outdent as a summary task. So we're going to have these options right here. Basically, the one that is pointing to the left is to outdent. The one that is pointing to the right is to indent the task. And that will make that task that you indent is going to become a substack of your project. So in order to decide which things are going to become subtasks and the ones that you're going to keep as a task, then you can use the top-down planning. So set up the major phases first and then break them down into individual tasks. So step one is to create a summary task or phase. You can use the new tab in the task view group, then click the red chart, enter the new task. This task will be the summary task for this phase of the project. Do one of the following in the duration field for this task, type expiration, example 20 days. Enter the start time and finish date for the phase if you don't know exactly how long the phase will last. And then to add tasks underneath the summary task, enter tasks underneath the summary task or phase that you created in the first step. So select all the tasks under the summary task and indent them. When you create a top-down summary task, the tasks that fall under the summary task are now summed up in the summary task. So you're going to see, let's say you create this large task, and you know that you can subdivide that task in multiple things. So let's say you want to build the foundation of a building, for instance. And you know that needs multiple tasks. So you need to bring the people who are going to measure the foundation. You need to bring the people who are going to prove the material, and the people who are going to follow up on at the end of the step. So you can create these general tasks and then have multiple subtasks that are going to be part of the major step. Something that you need to notice when you do that is that you're going to create this new bar in your Gantt chart, which is basically the duration of the major step, and then it's going to track the progress of each one of the tasks. So if we go here, if we go back to project, let's say I want to make this task a subtask. Or maybe let me choose task 5, and task number 6 is going to be a subtask of task 5. So go here, and then I indent that task. Then you will see that task 5 has this duration, 1 day. Task number 6 is part of that task. Let me increase this to 3 days. So now you have that major task progress bar, and you have another task that is part of that major step. So this bar right here is going to track the progress of the major step, including the subtask for that major step. That also is very helpful if you want to create this top to bottom planning. Let me add another task here. And this is new task. Let me put another day. And let me create some link between these two. So now you see these two tasks are part of task number 5. So they're linked. There's a separation because of the weekend. So Saturday and Sunday, they're not part of the schedule. So you see how the progress is tracked. Yes, sir. Yes. Say that one more time. For this set or for which one? On your screen? Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to look at how you find the. Yeah, because if you, for instance, if you look at this tab, even though it extends over the weekend,
Yeah, so Friday.
It's still 2 days.
But
So yours is showing,
if that was mine, that you guys,
so it will depend on the way that we define the initial setup, I guess. Oh, I can check your computer after the lecture is done. Any other questions? So again, this lecture is an introduction to project. There's a lot of things that you can do with this software, but for the purpose of this class, these are the major things that you're going to be repeating. So we will have a couple of activities in class that are going to be requiring you to use project to give you a better understanding of how to plan your project using the software tool. Any questions? Okay, so I'll see you on Tuesday. Oh, yes, after spring break.